Welcome to this special interview with Dr. Elson Haas and Sharon Lukert. For those of you who don't know Dr. Haas, he is the founder and medical director of the Preventive Medical Center of Marin. He has over 50 years experience and is one of the leading practitioners of integrative medicine in the United States. He is the author of 11 books and has been conducting online classes since 2018. Today, he'll be talking with Sharon Lukert. Sharon has a diverse background in healthcare, education, and hospice. She's been a Buddhist chaplain, a longtime meditator, and a meditation instructor. Sharon has been living with mild cognitive impairment due to Alzheimer's disease since her diagnosis in 2021. In her recently published book, Until My Memory Fails Me, she offers valuable insights and practical advice from her experience of living with a neurodegenerative disease. We're pleased to have her with us today. Welcome, Dr. Haas.
Thank you, Angela. And welcome, Sharon. It's great to have you here. You still look like a shining example of health. But our brain is the key, is the key to us. We have two key organs, I mean, some people would think more, but, our brain and our heart, and we got to keep those together. We just, with my wonderful team and a group of people, we just did a, several week course on healthy aging and actually conscious dying as well. That was the last class. So I know you've been involved in those areas. So why don't you maybe just share a moment about what got you into writing this book and what your message is.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks very much for having me first. It's really a pleasure to meet you and learn more about your work, as well as share a little bit about what I've been up to. So the book I wrote is called Until My Memory Fails Me: Mindfulness Practices for Cultivating Resilience and Self-Compassion in the Face of Cognitive Decline. Now, I basically wrote this book because I couldn't find a book like this when I was first diagnosed, and I was looking for information. And as Angela mentioned, I've worked in healthcare for a long time in different roles, and I've worked with people with dementia for a lot of my career. And so a lot of those people came to mind when I was diagnosed myself, and I consider them my dementia ancestors. And many of their stories came to me, and many of them are included in the book because I learned a lot of lessons from them.
Good,
Um,
good.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have an active family practice, and I have a fair amount of elders. People over 80, even as 60s, 70s. So it's a lot, and a lot of people who were in the healthy aging class were in their 60s and 70s.
Mhm.
And I'm checking everybody's memory when they come in. Sometimes I'll ask them I'm going to tell you three things. I might say green door, 67, and chicken. I said, but I'm going to ask you those again in a few minutes. And most people, I could tell immediately that they didn't process, they didn't know where to store it, they didn't know where to get it. So,
Mhm.
how do you think your brain has shifted in terms of the way it works, and do you have other things that help you kind of bring your memories back? You know,
Sure,
there's-
sure. So what you're pointing to is also a really good point about what's the difference between normal, healthy brains aging and more than normal changes in memory. Because it can be really hard to tell the difference. We all lose some memory as we get older. And so like, the chicken 60 something and something that you mentioned as a test. A lot of people my age and older, might have trouble with that. But still, that might still be within healthy aging. There's a lot of tricks that can be out there to help with memory. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about them. What I have found to be most important are the recommendations around how to keep your brain healthy, which, some of them are very basic. Good sleep, good food, good exercise,
right.
social activity, and the more we can do that kind of thing, the longer we're going to be able to utilize those neural pathways, and keep them healthy and alive.
Well, a lot of memory. I tell people I have a visual memory. I still remember med school from 50 some years ago, slides and videos up on the screen, and that was one of my med school buddies and childhood friends. He said that's what always amazed about you is you had a, not, I don't really think I have a photographic memory, but you could look at things once and be able to take a test on them. And he used to have to work a lot harder, so he didn't like me for that. But I think the visual memory. Several years ago, I read a book called Moonlighting with Einstein. I don't know if you ever saw that, but it's learning. It's memory. It's kind of memory games where you equate your memories with visual. So if I said green door 67, and chicken, which is what I said before, and you would kind of see those things. So I would picture a green door and the number 67. So it's a different story, but it's a fascinating book about connecting things visually.
Right. Yeah, I've also heard of connecting them with certain people or certain colors, so there are different ways, these are different tricks for keeping your memory healthy. The thing is, if you've got a neurodegenerative disease, those things don't help.
Right.
Yeah, so what I find more helpful is the meditation practices, especially the on the spot meditation practices, to really work on keeping my mind clear and calm as much as I can, and to slow myself down so that I'm not trying to multitask too much, because that doesn't work for me anymore. It did for many years, and boy, I could tell you, I was one of the best multitaskers when I was an administrator. I could be managing 5 different meetings a day, but now 1 meeting a day is plenty.
We have to as we age, many of us have to simplify. So your sense is, because a lot of people talk about, if you play word games and you play spelling and all that, that doesn't kind of keep your brain interactive and more focus.
The research that's been done about it doesn't actually prove that those things help.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
It's pretty relatively new research. I was just reading about like a month or so ago that, I mean, for years, there's luminosity on the computer, and I love to do Sudoku, and I think it does help keep me a little bit more alert. I did find writing the book to be very helpful, to be honest with you. As much as I was happy with the end product, that the act of writing every day really kept my mind engaged. And I think that that was very helpful for me. So any kind of engagement can be helpful, but the puzzles and games aren't any more helpful than reading a book or having a good conversation over coffee with someone.
What about engagement with other people? I mean, just to have presence and having kind of love and family and friends. Does that support?
Oh, that's very important support. Yeah,
You don't
absolutely.
feel isolated.
Yeah, yeah. One thing, many people with cognitive issues tend to isolate because it gets more difficult to
Right.
have
Right.
conversation.
And there's that stigma a bit of what people you kind of you don't remember things. You lost your marbles somewhere. You don't know where to find them.
Right, right.
Your
Yeah,
pan there. So that's an important area because people aren't treated the same when they start to either have any kind of handicap or any kind of issue with their brain functioning. They're not.
right.
Yeah.
I have a whole chapter in the book about stigma and bias, particularly for people with cognitive issues, because it is so prevalent. And one of the things I found when I was traveling around and meeting a lot of people was many people aren't afraid of dying, but they're very afraid of developing dementia.
Right.
They're terrified of it. Um, and from my perspective, yes, it's a loss. It's definitely a loss. Um, but that doesn't mean that we can't still have quality of life. It might be different for sure.
So what are some of the other topics in your book? What other areas you explore?
I start by telling a little bit of my own story of how I was diagnosed and what a shock it can be to receive a diagnosis, just like receiving a diagnosis of cancer. This can be life-changing. But I go on to talk about, what does it take to be diagnosed? What's the testing like? Where's the research at right now? Stigma and bias is a big piece. But I would say the heart of the book is really talking about how do we sustain ourselves emotionally and spiritually, and how do we develop positive. I don't like to call them habits, but I don't have a better word in mind right now. Um, Positive things that we do that can continue into while we're losing some of our cognitive abilities. And there have been research studies that if people develop some positive habits early on, they can continue and support them even when they have moderate to severe dementia.
So your attitude, because one of my 5 keys, you mentioned, low stress, nutrition, exercise, sleep, but healthy attitude and kind of self-love and not getting down on yourself. I mean, we all are going to change. Some of us have aches and pains and, we can't get around like we used to, or it's harder getting up off the ground if you get down there, and all these things happen as we age. So, we want to kind of harmonize with that, not combat it so much, so, and the same with our minds, the more stress we have or the more frustration or the more self-doubt or protection we give ourselves, that can sometimes be trouble.
Yes. I think back to when I used to work with cancer patients, and many of them would develop a battle attitude. They were warriors and they were going to fight this cancer. Um, and for some people that worked, depending on their personality. But yeah, I have a completely different attitude that this is a part of my body aging, and how can I work with it rather than against it? And I think part of my focus on the emotional and spiritual, with my background as a chaplain, I see how important that is for people.
I mean, the evolutionary, to me, we're all here to evolve and learn. So the more we do, and some of our illnesses and difficulties teach us as much as anything. The crises that people have, so, I have to, counsel patients all the time. You'll get through this, you'll find out 2 years from now, you're going to find out that was a really important thing that happened, even though you were, freaked out and limited. Now it's, it'll get better. But we also have things, as I said during my courses that, we know none of us get out of here alive, so we have to kind of keep with it and do the best we can as we go.
Yeah. Another important aspect of the book is I include on-the-spot meditation practices at the end of every chapter. So there's different practices that are recommended for different situations, but also whatever the person feels fits them the most.
I notice you also have a lot of resources and support for people who are going through this or have a parent who are going through it. You
Mhm.
can learn a lot from that. So, people probably should get your book if they want all that stuff. But share a few of the more important areas.
Sure, I will. And I also include them on my website, so they can also just
Oh
look
yeah.
at the website. Well, the Alzheimer's Association is one. And one of the things I like to point out about that is it's not only for Alzheimer's, even though that's part of their name, they're available for any kind of neurocognitive disease. And they have support groups, both online and in person. So they're a very important resource. Another one is every county in the country has a department on aging. It's called something different in different states. Here in Wisconsin, it's called the Aging and Disability Resource Center. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in California, it's called the Department on Aging. And every county has one. And some of them are more advanced than others in dementia support, but all of them are a place for local resources, particularly if you're looking for a support group locally or maybe some extra help in the home or something like that, or even just more information and more education.
And what's your website, Sharon?
It's SharonLukert.com. And I think we can put that at the end. Yeah.
Lukert. So
Right.
how are you doing now? How's your? I know you're on the road doing talks and interviews, etc. So how did that stress hold up for you?
Well, I came back and realized I'd done a little too much. I was very happy that I did it because I met so many people who also have cognitive issues and were hungry for information. And it was heartwarming to have conversations with people that I met. But it's taken me well over a month to kind of recover and really kind of I'm still working on getting back into my normal routine. So
Mm.
it's interesting because people often say to me that I can quote unquote pass easily for normal. I mean, I can still put a sentence together and still have a sense of humor. But what they don't see is the toll that it takes. You know,
The last couple of things. So give us a couple minutes on just what a simple meditation might be like for people who are having issues.
Sure. And this goes for anyone, actually. The one that I'll share, it's called a pause practice. And it's something that I learned from one of my teachers, Pema Chodron. And it's quite simple. And all the on-the-spot meditations are something you can do anywhere. I mean, I often am doing them when I'm walking around a grocery store, you know. So, but with the pause practice, it's really a way to just literally pause and check in with yourself. So you just start by, if I'm washing the dishes, I would lift my head and just take a breath in. And with the first breath, I just check in with my body and let that go. Take another breath in, check in with my thoughts, and then let them go. And then take another breath in and check in with my feelings, my emotions, and then let that go. And then go back to what I was doing before.
Mhm.
What this does is it really helps develop emotional resilience and emotional awareness, where you become more and more present and aware to what's going on physically, mentally, and emotionally in the very moment of whatever it is that you're doing. It's very easy and you can do it and no one even knows that you're doing it.
And we got to check in with our spirit always too. So that was it. So my detox group I've been doing for a lot of years, I do kind of the whole self part. So we work on physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual level, and I think it's really added another whole level for people, another octave. So
Absolutely.
all right. So any other things you want to share?
Yeah, I think to end with, I'd just like to share that the final chapter, there's also a chapter about grief, and the final chapter is about planning for the future. And we all know about power of attorney for healthcare, or I hope we all know about them. But what I'm talking about in the last chapter is how do we plan for our emotional and spiritual future? How do we plan what do you know of now that can support you later on, that would really help, really support whatever your faith is and whatever your emotional needs are. So I think that's another important factor that we tend not to look at.
All right. Well, I appreciate talking with you and looking through your book, and I feel blessed that I'm kind of aging, but my brain is still pretty good. So I'm blessed there, but I feel like my body, I always struggle with weight. I have to really work on, keeping a little lighter and a little more agile. And I do that through exercise and stretching and all that. But each person has to tune in individually, and that's part of your meditation. You suggested too, because what you're experiencing is unique to you.
Exactly.
Your attitudes toward it are important. So,
Mhm.
my work has always been, live healthfully, prevent disease, use medicines the least amount you need, and that's what my practice is about. So to me, it works when we do that. So I appreciate visiting with you, Sharon, and I wish you well, and keep that brain. You think You just maybe you think you've declined? Is it like an ongoing thing, or you feel like you're holding steady?
No, it's progressive. It's slow, but it is progressive. I'm making more mistakes now than I used to. I'm having a little more difficulty with word finding and that kind of thing. I often say I'm glad I wrote the book when I did because I don't think I could anymore. So yeah, yeah. But it is a slow process. I could still be around 20 years from now. Who knows?
Good. Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, okay, we should connect in a few years from now and see how we're doing.
That sounds like a good idea. I appreciate that.
All right. Blessings.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.